What is up, you guys? We're gonna do a little Whole Foods run. Berries, I got raspberries. I got some organic pasture-raised eggs. This is way too much omega-3 in my opinion. I'm a broken record. Tallow is king. I've got the perfect shirt for the occasion. Ready for this? Whole Foods doesn't even know what's coming. Let's go. That was bullshit. All right, let's go straight to the vegetables. In case you guys were wondering, this is bullshit. Why would we eat plant leaves? They clearly don't want to be eaten. They're full of defense chemicals. This is garbage. Sulforaphane, all that stuff, super misleading, not good for you. Clearly a defense chemical when glucoraphanin combines with myrosinase, making sulforaphane. I've talked about this on a ton of videos. The other thing to know is that kale is the same plant as broccoli, is the same plant as collard greens, is the same plant as cauliflower. These are all brassica vegetables. They all have this defense mechanism. It's been widely touted as healthy for you. It's clearly trying to kill you. Kale is bullshit. I'm gonna get some grass-fed ground beef. I wanna show you guys something about Whole Foods though, so hopefully we'll move the camera. You can see most of the meats here say that they're pasture-raised, right? This is something about Whole Foods that kind of pisses me off. This is totally misleading. So if you ask these guys, they'll tell you straight up, pasture-raised is not grass-fed. Pasture-raised is like Whole Foods' kind of like sneaky way of selling you meat that is grain-finished. Do not be misled by pasture-raised meats at Whole Foods. This is one of their main pet peeves with them. If you want grass-fed, grass-finished meat, which is something I believe in deeply, it's got to say grass-fed, grass-finished. Can I get 4 pounds of the grass-fed ground beef? Thank you, sir. The pasture-raised meat here, is this like grass-fed and then grain-finished? The pasture-raised?
Grain-finished, absolutely.
It's grain-finished. Okay, cool.
Non-GMO, grain-based feed, all-mixed feed.
Okay, and then but the grass-fed is grass-fed, grass-finished. Perfect.
They literally come from the same herd. They'll just split the herd. Half the herd will be finished with grain. The other half just continues to eat grass.
Half gets grain in the end. Half gets. Okay, cool.
Exactly the same.
Cool.
Just finished.
Finished. Finished differently in the end. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys.
No worries. Y'all have a great night.
Have a good day. So I got the fresh ground beef, but I love this company, Force of Nature. This is my buddy Robbie's company. He's been on the podcast. They are legitimately regenerative, grass-fed, grass-finished, rotational grazing. They even have organ grinds. This is pretty much the only place you're going to find organs in Whole Foods. If you want fresh organs, this is a good option. They're in the ground beef. They don't have liver or heart here. This is why we do what we do at Heart and Soil, you guys. I believe organs are crucial, but you can't get organs at a lot of Whole Foods. This is in Austin, Texas, the most bougie supermarket there is. You can't get organs, so if you need organs in your life, check us out at Heart and Soil for some desiccated organs too. All right, you guys, so we're gonna try and walk you through what we got in the cart. Whole Foods doesn't like us recording in the store for some reason, but we're rule breakers, so let's go through it. I got a bunch of fruit. There's a couple things in here that are not supposed to be in the cart that I'm gonna tell you about afterwards. We got some Beyond Beef, obviously not a preference. We got a broccoli sprout. I'm gonna tell you why I hate those in a moment, but what I do like is I got a couple of pounds of grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef. I got a bunch of different fruit. I got blueberries, I got strawberries, I got blackberries, I got raspberries, I got some organic pasture-raised eggs. All of these foods are animal-based. I've got an organic avocado. I got an organic pineapple. I got some organic local raw honey, which I love. I even got a squash. This is a kabocha squash. This is my favorite type of squash. And this is, all of these foods are animal-based. I threw in a sweet potato here. A lot of people will include sweet potatoes in their diet. I think these are kind of middle on the range in terms of food toxicity. If you can tolerate them, great. They're not my first choice, but I put it in the cart to show you guys what you might get on an animal-based diet. I'm actually not gonna buy the squash or the sweet potato today, but I put it in there, like I said, to illustrate this. We grabbed a jar of tallow as well. This is what I prefer to cook in. I like this more than butter. I don't do well with dairy, so I'm gonna cook in tallow. Our fire starter supplement from Heart and Soil is a high stearic acid tallow that is very special. It's from the suet of the animal. It's really great for weight loss, energy, libido, absorption of other fat-soluble nutrients combined with the other supplements that we have from Ardent Soil. But if you're going to cook in an oil, I like tallow. Why do I like tallow so much? It's very low in linoleic acid. So you can see here, there's a bunch of seed oils, even in Whole Foods. You've got sunflower seed oil, safflower seed oil, canola oil. Not a fan of these at all, you guys. These are much higher in linoleic acid. They're obviously oxidized, most of them. It's going to be a real problem. These are toxins, in my opinion. Even grapeseed oil, very high in linoleic acid. Now, a lot of people then ask me, what about avocado oil? What about olive oil? In terms of olive oil is very often tainted. It's very often rancid, and unless you know exactly what the lipid peroxide levels and how good the olive oil you're getting is, I would avoid olive oil. I would definitely not cook with it. A lot of oils actually cut with seed oils as well. The same thing goes for avocado oil. It's not my favorite. It's much higher in linoleic acid than a tallow is going to be. It's better than a seed oil that's going to be 20, 30, 40, 50% linoleic acid, but avocado oil and olive oil are still 12 to 20% linoleic acid. I think it's higher than you want in your diet. I would not use avocado oil. Again, a lot of them are tainted, a lot of them are rancid, a lot of them are oxidized. Not my favorites at all. So ghee, I like ghee if you tolerate dairy. I don't tolerate dairy, so even though deep ghee is clarified, even though this is casein and whey free, I still get a reaction to it from dairy. If you tolerate dairy, great. Get ghee, cook in ghee. I don't do it. I just do tallow when I want to add extra fat to my food, but I get fatty steaks and fatty burgers. I don't even find that I need to add oil to my food in general. Why don't I like pork lard? Not a fan of pork lard because pigs are generally fed corn and soy. This raises the amount of linoleic acid in their fat to a level that I think is evolutionarily inconsistent for humans. Wild hogs have a much lower amount of linoleic acid, maybe 5% in their fat. This pork fat is probably going to be 15, 16, 17% linoleic acid. Another thing is duck fat, again, going to be much higher in linoleic acid. Even though it's cage-free and rendered duck fat, it's still fed grains, it's still fed corn and soy, it's still fed an evolutionarily inconsistent diet. I'm not as much a fan of that. I'm boring. I freaking love the tallow, guys. Cows, bison, this is where it's at. People also ask about coconut oil. Coconut oil is great. It's mostly saturated. It doesn't have any of the animal-based nutrients in it. It doesn't have stearic acid, doesn't have the odd chain fatty acids that tallow does. I'm a broken record. Tallow is king. If you want to use the others, okay, but not as good in terms of nutrients with coconut oil or the other oils. So hopefully that helps in terms of the oils. So a lot of things, one of the things that's confusing for people on animal-based diet is fruit that people think of as vegetables. The two examples I can think of off the top of my head are olives and cucumbers or pickles. So I think olives are great. If you like olives, eat olives. You might even pick up some olives like any of these at the store. Obviously, you'd want the olives to be in water. If they're in olive oil, maybe that oil's rancid. You don't want olives in anything but olive oil that's really healthy olive oil or fresh olive oil or water. I prefer olives in water or a salt solution. And I try and get olives that don't have too many spices. I try and keep it simple. But olives are a fruit. Cucumbers are also a fruit. I think a lot of people do best with cucumbers when they're skin and seed free. Pickles obviously have skin and seeds, but they have been fermented if it's a really good quality pickle. So it's probably fine for most people. I would be careful if you're sensitive and you have gut issues to avoid things like pickles with a whole bunch of garlic or peppers in them. Just go for simple pickles, but you can get a fermented pickle that I think would help increase the variety. The next thing you might think about is sauerkraut. I'm not as much of a fan of sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is cabbage. It's a brassica vegetable that's been detoxified by fermentation. We know this. When you ferment cabbage, you are going to degrade the glucosinolates that I talked about earlier in the kale, because cabbage is another brassica vegetable. So you can detoxify a lot of the things that are problematic about brassicas by fermenting them. So sauerkraut is probably better than kale for sure. It's much less bullshit than kale, but see how you react to it. So we're actually going to buy some Beyond Beef to do a video about it. It's promptly going to go into the trash can, or we'll use it to make Play-Doh animals. But one of the things that's remarkable about the plant-based meats is if you look at the nutrition label and you try and look at the macros or the nutrients, it may seem comparable to what you've seen for beef. But when you really dig into this, listen to the podcast today with Stefan Van Vliet, you'll find that So many of the nutrients found in meat are not actually in here, obviously, because it's fake meat. Most of you guys know this, but don't be misled by myopic nutrition labels. They can fake the nutrition label by adding a bunch of synthetic supplements to this, by adding a bunch of synthetic vitamins and minerals to make it look like the nutrition label is comparable to beef. This is nothing like beef. It doesn't have any anserine, doesn't have any taurine, doesn't have any choline, doesn't have any carnitine, doesn't have any coenzyme Q10, has 0 heme iron. It has none of these unique peptides that are found in meat. This is not anywhere close to meat. Don't be fooled if the macros look like meat, because even at the macro level, the protein in this is much less bioavailable than it is in real meat. So we'll do more videos about why this is garbage, but this is going straight in the garbage when we get home. If we're passing by this, I just want to make some comments about sardines. I know some of you guys like them. I'm generally not a fan of sardines for a lot of reasons. I think the first reason is that it's really hard to keep fish fresh. You guys know this. If you throw fish next to yourself when you're fishing, it's going to get rancid and rot really fast. Even if you put fish in a container in water, it's gonna get rotten. It's gonna get oxidized. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever looked at how much oxidation and lipid peroxides are in sardines, but this is not a good thing, guys. I would not overeat this. There's been many examples of people like Joe Rogan who ate a lot of sardines and then came up with high levels of heavy metals like arsenic. So I'm not convinced these are a health food in general. If you're gonna eat fish, try and get fresh fish, get wild caught fish, eat the fish that's lowest in heavy metals. Tuna here, I would never eat tuna. I don't even eat tuna. It's too big a fish. It's gonna have too much mercury, too many heavy metals. Give it a miss. We didn't go buy the seafood aisle in the store. I'm gonna break some hearts now, but I'm gonna tell you guys this. I think occasional shellfish is fine, but they're benthic. They're at the bottom of the ocean. They also accumulate heavy metals. Do not base the majority of your diet on fish. They're too polluted today. That's just how it goes. I'm sorry to tell you guys that. If you want to eat wild salmon occasionally, great. Don't eat a ton of oysters. Don't overeat oysters. They have a lot of cadmium and other heavy metals. Look into this. You're going to get everything you need from meat and organs, guys. If you want to eat those things occasionally, great. Don't overdo it. That's my caution. I want to say a word about spices. I like just salt. I'm a fan of Maldon salt. We'll find some of that in the store and show you guys. It's right here. I like Maldon salt. I like sea salts. Okay. I like starting off people on animal-based diets without a lot of spices. Remember, turmeric, for instance, it's touted as a beautiful thing. I've talked about this many times. There are many compounds in turmeric that don't appear to be good for humans. Paprika is a nightshade. It's definitely been shown to be in a family of plants that can damage your gut. Garlic, a lot of defense chemicals in garlic, and contains endogenous things in garlic that are antibiotics that are meant to kill bacteria, that it could maybe be bad for your gut. So I'm not a fan of doing a whole lot of spices in the beginning, guys. Even things like pepper can be a problem for humans. Pepper has a compound in it called piperine, among others, that inhibit a big long enzyme called UDP, glucuronosyltransferase, that's involved in phase 2 detoxification in your body. Start with salt and build from there. Start with salt, go easy, go simple, get a good salt, taste your food. You'll be amazed at how many of these spices you don't need. You don't need these spices. Understand how your body reacts. Then if you want to add in spices, start with things like leaf spices, something like cilantro or oregano or basil, not the seed spices. I talk about this in my cookbook. It's coming out in December. It's called the Carnivore Code Cookbook. You can look for it on Amazon. But start with leaf spices, but start originally with just pure, simple sea salt. So we're in the supplement aisle now. This is my least favorite part of the store because it's the most processed part of the store, or one of the most processed parts of the store. I want to mention something about gelatin. I believe in collagen and I believe in gelatin, but this is hoof and hide gelatin. This is from the least valuable part of the cow. This is the least bioavailable type of collagen there is. This is why I'm a huge fan of higher quality collagen, especially like what we make at Heart and Soil with our skin, hair, and nail supplement, which has cartilage from the trachea and the scapula. It's been studied by people like John Pruden, found to be very beneficial for wound healing in unique ways. This is like first grade collagen, all right? Skin, hair, and nails is like university level collagen, okay? This is the basic, not that great. Graduate to cartilage from trachea and scapula, much more bioactive, totally different element, totally different thing to be putting in your body. This is not something I'm a huge fan of. It's just very low quality collagen in general. Better than nothing, but low quality. So we're still in the supplement aisle. A huge thing here with ubiquinol, CoQ10. Guess what, guys? Tons of bioavailable CoQ10 available in heart and other animal organs like liver. When I have done tests on my patients, my clients, their CoQ10 is off the chart, right? CoQ10 is super valuable for muscle health. We know that statins inhibit this because they inhibit the enzyme involved in that process, which is HMG-CoA reductase. I'm not a fan of statins at all, but in general, you want CoQ10 in your diet. Where do you get it? You get it from heart, you get it from organs. Those are the best sources. Like I said, the people I've worked with have CoQ10s that are off the charts when they're eating organs. You don't need any of this if you're eating animal-based. That's the point of being in this aisle. So many of the supplements in this aisle, you don't need any of these things if you're eating animal-based. Over here, we have a bunch of calcium supplements, which are synthetic, calcium citrate, calcium carbonate, which is chalk. The best source of calcium is a bioavailable source like bone meal, like microcrystalline hydroxyapatite. We make this at Heart and Soil. It's called Bone Matrix. There's a bunch of probiotics here. I think these can be beneficial for humans, but I think a lot of times we put the cart before the horse. You have to change your diet. You have to remove the foods that are damaging your gut before you start throwing in a bunch of probiotics. And I would start with something like Gut and Digestion from us, which has peptides and cofactors, from tripe, which is stomach and intestines, and like natural probiotics that are different than these. So I prefer that to this as a start. These can be helpful, but I don't think they're great long term, and they're certainly not sustainable. What we know about probiotics is that some fermented foods do improve gut microbial diversity, but taking a probiotic long term doesn't result in changes unless you always do the probiotic. As soon as you stop the probiotic, all those benefits go away. Doesn't sound super sustainable to me, and that's definitely not what our ancestors did. They ate fermented foods occasionally, they ate nutrient-rich foods, they got sunlight, and I feel like that is how you get a healthy gut. You have the nutrients your body needs to make a tight intestinal lining, and you avoid putting things in there that are going to damage your gut. That's the key. Don't get overly confused about probiotics. They can be helpful down the road, but start with a good foundation. Start with animal-based nutrients from meat and organs. Include something like Gut and Digestion with actual tripe and intestines if you're still not doing well, and go from there. And get sunlight, because there's really interesting research suggesting that sunlight can be very beneficial for gut diversity overall, which is something not many people know about. So I'm not a fan of fish oils, guys. Fish oils are omega-3, they're polyunsaturated fatty acids. They're very highly unsaturated, they're very fragile. They oxidize almost immediately. I've seen the COAs for a lot of these. They do have a significant amount of lipid peroxides in them. You can get plenty of omega-3s eating animal-based, whether it's egg yolks, whether it's tallow. This is what your body needs to make cell membranes. Don't overdo it on fish oils. This is not a good idea. This is way, way too much omega-3 in my opinion. I don't buy into the omega index. I don't buy into any of that stuff. You don't need fish oil to be healthy. You don't need massive doses of this. They can have pretty significant bad side effects when you overdo this. I differ in many health authorities or many health pundits on this, but I think that there are so many cultures of people throughout the world who don't have access to seafoods. They're inland and they just eat animal meat and organs. When I've done my fatty acid analysis with essentially no egg yolks, just animal fat from tallow and beef, I had plenty of DHA, I had plenty of EPA, there's plenty of omega-3 in well-raised animal fat. I think that's the evolutionarily appropriate level. This is completely evolutionarily inappropriate and highly oxidized. So there's a bunch of magnesium here, all different types of magnesium, and everybody always asks about magnesium when they're thinking about an animal-based diet. Where do I get enough magnesium? Here's what I've got to say. This is a paradigm shift. If you are eating whole foods, if you are eating meat and organs, and you are avoiding the foods that will rob you of magnesium, these are the phytic acid and oxalate containing foods like beans, nuts, grains, and seeds. It's about how much magnesium you hold on to, not about how much magnesium you get. The RDA for magnesium is really absurd. It's basically impossible to get the RDA for magnesium by eating any food in this grocery store without supplementing. You'd have to eat tons of almonds, tons of kale. You can't even do it. And believe me, I was a raw vegan. That was the lowest magnesium I've ever had when you actually measure it functionally. So you can see this with divalent cations, with molecules that have a 2+ charge. If you are eating them in foods that have phytic acid like almonds or other seeds, or you're eating them in plant foods with oxalates, they are not absorbed. They are not absorbed. This is the great magnesium fallacy, guys. It's not about how much magnesium you eat, it's about how much you retain. I've never been magnesium deficient. I've never seen anyone who's magnesium deficient on an animal-based diet if they were eating meat and organs and fruit and honey. That's plenty. Meat is actually a pretty good source of magnesium. Don't get hung up on the RDA. Don't get worrying about that stuff. Avoid the foods that are going to rob you of magnesium. Oxalate, phytic acid containing foods, beans, nuts, grains, legumes, leafy greens, also high in oxalic acid a lot of times, are going to rob you of these ions. So that's the story on magnesium. All right, so we're here in the water aisle. When I'm in Austin, I've got a Berkey filter, and I like Mountain Valley water for a couple of reasons. I did a whole controversial thoughts video on is there uranium in your water. There's a lot of the bottled waters that actually have a good amount of uranium. Interestingly, the Starkey Springs water has been shown to be pretty high in arsenic. So I'm not a fan of this one, and I'm not a fan of anything in plastic. So I'm a real stickler with water, you guys. Fiji water is great in terms of silica and in terms of contaminants, but it's in plastic. And so I'm not gonna buy water that's in plastic, ever, if I can avoid it. I want water that's in glass, and I want water that's free from contaminants. So check out that controversial thoughts on if there's uranium in your water, where I go through a number of waters. I wanna also comment on things in cans, because a lot of people don't understand this, but cans are lined with plastic because they're made from aluminum. Even if they say that plastic lining the can is BPA free, there are still xenoestrogens in that plastic, BPS, BPE. So like even canned water is a problem. Look, Richard's Rainwater, Liquid Death, it's in a can. The can is made from aluminum. Aluminum is not great for humans. The can is lined with plastic, not great for humans. The other thing I've seen people do is drink water or juices or teas or beverages in Tetra Pak. Same thing. Tetra Pak is lined with plastic. I mean, I picked up an Evolve plant-based protein shake, which is clearly garbage, but this is lined with plastic. You don't want this if you can avoid it. I'm giving you guys the lowdown. I'm giving you guys the high level. I'm giving you guys the ideal. I'm giving you guys the ideal of what you want. If it all sounds too crazy, do what you can do, but I want to give you as much information as I can. Obviously, this water, it's in plastic. This water, it's in plastic. We're not doing any of that. So, unfortunately, as much as I love coconut water, they don't have any coconut water here that's in glass, so there's no coconut water being purchased now. I'm just going to get a bottle of Mountain Valley water in glass and call it good. All right, guys, quick word on kombuchas. I generally like kombucha. It's a fermented beverage of tea. I think any of the negative things in tea, it's hard to know if it's net positive or net negative. I think a lot of the negative things can potentially be fermented out. When I do drink kombucha, which I do from time to time, I try and get kombuchas that don't have a lot of the plant additives in them. I don't want anything with lavender. I'm just gonna get a fruit-based kombucha like a guava or a mango. I don't even like the ones with ginger, but I'm pretty extreme, you guys know that. I like the pineapple one, I like the original. I'm obviously gonna avoid tantric turmeric kombucha. I'm not a fan of that. I'm also not a fan of the mushrooms. I think I've done videos on mushrooms in the past. I don't think there's anything magical about these quote-unquote medicinal mushrooms. So if you want to include kombucha on your diet, I think it's great. See how you do with it. People with histamine intolerance don't always handle it too well, but I think histamine intolerance is fixable if you address your gut. So, all right, guys, so the last thing I want to talk about is the food bar at Whole Foods and how misleading it is. If you read the labels on these things, you will find that all of them, or most of them, have seed oils. So cilantro, lime, rice, expeller pressed canola oil. This one has expeller pressed canola oil. This one has safflower seed oil. This one has sunflower seed oil. So be aware of the fact that even in Whole Foods, these guys are not savvy to seed oils, and a lot of these prepared foods are going to have seed oils in them. All right, guys, that's the Whole Foods trip. Hopefully that's helpful. We can do a part 2 if you guys found that helpful. We probably could go down every single aisle and talk for 20 minutes about tons of things, but I think it was interesting to do it. Hope you guys like that. I'm gonna go home and cook some food. I'm gonna go make some grass-fed burgers, eat some honey and fruit. It's been a good day. Stay radical, you guys.